You cannot unknow the suffering when it is staring you in the face, unless, of course, you are living in Kody Brown's world. For some reason, in the chaos of his complicated family life, even the most anguished cries are shouted down. Garrison, Kody's own son, was silently crying out to be saved. But nobody, least of all Kody, came to listen. As the pandemic tightened its grip, Garrison's emotional state took a serious dive. He wasn't just isolated, he was suffering. But in a household where control often matters more than connection, his pain became background noise. And the most devastating part? It didn't have to be this way. What happens when your own family becomes your silence? Let's find out. Garrison's psychological problems did not manifest themselves overnight. They were slow, steady, and glaring, at least to anyone who was watching. But the family's ongoing dysfunction served to create an environment in which emotional needs were generally neglected. It was not so much that one boy was being overlooked. It was a reflection of the deeper fault lines in the whole Brown family. This is not just a tragic page in one family's history. This is a story about mental health overlooked, emotional cries quieted, and love surrendering to rules. It's a story about how control became more important than connection, and how the effects ripple through every member of the family. But wait, what if I told you Garrison's story is just one strand in a much greater unraveling? Keep watching, because Garrison is not alone. Hunter, Isabel, and others have also gone through depression, physical struggle, and a suffocating absence of emotional support. As they suffered in silence, Kody appeared more invested in remaining in control than in the well-being of his children. Time and time again, we've seen this very pattern. Empathy replaced with ego. And while the cameras record the dramatic altercations, it's the true emotional toll, the quiet suffering behind closed doors, that testifies to the heartbreaking truth. Hi, I'm Mary, and welcome to Sister Wives Daily. If you've ever felt the emotional gravity of this story, press that subscribe button and enable notifications, because what is about to come is even more exposing. And I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below with your impression of Garrison's predicament and Kody's reaction. Let's discuss. Now, let's talk about someone who has carried more than her fair share of this emotional burden, Janelle Brown. Normally the calm, steady one, Janelle's determination has been challenged time and time again. But during the pandemic, that determination was pushed to the edge. While the world was grappling with a global health crisis, Janelle was fighting one of her own, a deep emotional battle concerning the mental well-being of her children. Garrison was retreating into a dark place, and his mother could sense that something was horribly amiss. Janelle could sense it, the withdrawal, the depression, the solitude. They were not just symptoms of adolescent angst. They were calls for help, loud and clear to any ear willing to listen. But instead of being offered a shoulder in her partner, Janelle was left to fend for herself. How do you hold your family together when the person next to you won't stop ripping it to pieces? That's the question Janelle was left to answer, by herself. Kody, rather than being her rock, dismissed her concerns. He was more interested in staying in control than in being understanding. And while the other wives were all wrapped up in their own emotional tornadoes, Janelle was largely left to carry the weight of her son's breakdown by herself. But this isn't the first time we've seen Janelle quietly battle through emotional pain. When the family relocated to Las Vegas, she openly shared her struggles with depression. The overwhelming responsibility of raising children in such a chaotic environment weighed heavily on her. Despite this, she soldiered on. She stayed strong, kept going, and put her children first. That strength, however, came at a cost, one which continues to take its toll today. Janelle's is a story of quiet strength, but for how much longer can someone keep pushing forward when no one else is walking with them? The answer to that question just might decide the fate of the Brown family. But despite the world crumbling around her, Janelle did not weaken. She remained steadfast, working all she could to prevent her family from breaking apart. Through the chaos, she clung to the hope that love and support would hold them together. But the harder she worked, the more isolated she felt, like her son, Garrison. Garrison's hurt wasn't concealed. It was there in black and white for all who really noticed. But in a family more concerned with control and rules than real relating, his silent screams remained unheeded. No one, not even his dad, seemed to notice what was really happening. As the pandemic dragged on, the world outside Garrison grew darker. The isolation, the loss of structure, the absent friends, it all took its toll. Bit by bit, his life began to disengage from everything that had previously grounded him. He was disappearing in broad daylight. And the worst part? He was suffering privately, no one paying much attention. Janelle, as his mother, noticed it first. She saw the small things, the overly long hours by himself, the waning energy, the withdrawal effect. She knew these were not mood swings. These were warning signs. But when she spoke to Kody about her worries, she was met with discouragement, not support. Instead of uniting under Garrison, the family broke down further. Kody was more concerned with maintaining his own sense of order intact than showing true compassion. What he was worried about was not his son's emotional health. It was the appearance of family cohesion. And that's when the emotional neglect really came into focus. Garrison didn't need lectures or ultimatums. He needed to be seen. He needed emotional safety, someone to validate the hurt he was experiencing and walk him through it. But when that did not happen, he turned to whatever would dull the pain inside. One of the clearest signs of his desperation was that he drank. This was not rebellion. It was a survival mechanism, a scream in a cover of silence. The liquor became an escape from the crushing anxiety and desolation that had overwhelmed his life. Even as Janelle fought for her son, the neglect continued. Kody's emotional withdrawal left Garrison in his worst moments all alone. A home that should be filled with warmth and acceptance became a center of silence and alienation, and Garrison was adrift. Kody's parenting style was the complete opposite of Janelle's. While she tried to coddle, listen, and nurture, Kody stayed at arm's length, both mentally and emotionally. Parenting, in his case, seemed more about domination and less about bonding. He wasn't keen on allowing his children to grow up through their ordeal. He was keen on holding everything in check, his authority intact, and beyond his discomfort zone. That kind of attitude created a gulf between him and the children, a growing emotional chasm that only deepened during the pandemic. Consider Garrison, for example. Janelle noticed the warning signs. She voiced her concern. She reached out. But rather than join her in worry, Kody distanced himself. He didn't empathize. He didn't comfort. Rather, he downplayed Garrison's hurt, treated it as a disruption, and shut it down. And this was not merely about Garrison. The same was the case with Hunter. When Hunter described his own struggles with feelings, Kody didn't listen in understanding. He labeled it as entitlement. He saw it as rebellion, not depression. And in doing that, he made one thing absolute. Feelings that didn't work in his management were ignored. Kody continually defined his children's emotional suffering as personal shortcomings rather than human experiences that required compassion. The sicker they were, the more distant he became. His children were suffering real mental and emotional pain, and his response was silence. Because to Kody Brown, things being in control were more important than his family being emotionally intact. And that silence, thick and cold and unmoving, was the most devastating wound of all. But perhaps what hurts the most is seeing the sharp contrast in how Kody responds to his children's pain, depending on who they are. When Aurora began experiencing panic attacks, Kody showed up. He was present, attentive, and emotionally available. He offered the care and sensitivity that were painfully missing when it came to Garrison or Hunter. The difference wasn't just noticeable, it was glaring. It's hard not to wonder, was Kody's empathy reserved only for the children who didn't challenge his authority? Was his emotional support limited to those who didn't disturb the image he had of himself as the head of the family? Because for the others, the response was colder, dismissive, detached. And this favoritism didn't just cause tension, it fractured the family at its core. The emotional imbalance created a painful dynamic where love and attention felt conditional, only offered to the easier kids, the ones who didn't require Kody to change or grow. But this dysfunction went beyond just emotional neglect. It was woven into every part of the family's fabric. It was systemic. From inconsistent parenting to financial mismanagement, the Brown family's problems ran deep. But nothing was more heartbreaking than their collective failure to put the children's well-being first. Take Isabel's scoliosis, for example. This wasn't just a mild discomfort. It was a serious medical condition causing both physical pain and emotional distress. And yet, for far too long, it was treated like an afterthought. Kody showed no urgency. There was no focused plan, no immediate push to get her the surgery she needed. Only when the pain became impossible to ignore did the family act. But by then, Isabel had already suffered in silence, and this wasn't just about delayed medical care, it was a failure of emotional care. The kind of support that tells a child, you matter, your pain matters. Then there's Garrison. His mental health decline was just as urgent as Isabel's physical condition, but again, the pattern repeated: silence, delay, dismissal. In this family, mental health didn't seem to count. It wasn't discussed, prioritized, or treated with the seriousness it deserved. Instead, his emotional distress was brushed aside, as if it didn't deserve the same care, attention, or urgency. This wasn't a one-time oversight. This was a system-wide failure, a refusal to acknowledge pain until it was too big to ignore. And even then, the responses were reactive, never proactive. Kody and the rest of the family consistently chose short-term comfort over long-term healing. They focused on what was easiest to manage instead of investing in the emotional well-being of their children. That kind of avoidance doesn't solve anything. It only deepens the cracks. It only leaves the family more broken, more neglected, more hurt. And no one illustrates that slow emotional erosion more than Mary. Mary's journey in this toxic dynamic is heartbreaking. For years, she's lived in a painful cycle, constantly seeking Kody's approval, desperately hoping for validation that rarely, if ever, comes. Despite being repeatedly sidelined, Mary continues to cling to the hope that Kody will see her, value her, love her. But the reality is stark. Kody's attention, when given, is often directed toward Robin, while Mary is left emotionally starved. Still, she defends him. Even when his words and actions hurt her, Mary chooses to preserve the image of family unity. She continues to put herself last, believing that if she sacrifices enough, Kody might finally offer her the love she deserves. But in doing so, she enables the very toxicity that keeps her trapped. Her loyalty doesn't bring healing, it deepens the dysfunction. Her unwillingness to let go of Kody blinds her to the emotional harm he inflicts. And while she fights to maintain a fragile peace with him and Robin, her bond with the other wives, especially Christine, begins to crumble. The tension between Mary and Christine only reflects how divided the family has become, emotionally, mentally, and relationally. Because when love is conditional, when validation is earned and not freely given, families don't grow, they break. Mary continues to stand by Kody and Robin, defending their decisions, even when it isolates her emotionally from Christine. Christine, who has finally begun to speak out against the clear imbalance in the family, has chosen truth over silence. But Mary? Her loyalty to Kody has trapped her in a painful cycle. By standing by Kody and validating his toxic behavior, Mary becomes more than a bystander. She becomes complicit. Her deep need for approval has kept her rooted in dysfunction, even when it's obvious that it's hurting her. And Cody's hypocrisy? It's nearly impossible to ignore. He constantly talks about his divine connection with Robin, this almost spiritual bond he claims to share with her. She's not just another wife to him, she's the wife, his one true love. And while he exalts her, he distances himself emotionally from the women who've stood by his side for decades. He's built this idealized image of his relationship with Robin, one that exists in a bubble, completely separate from the reality he shares with the rest of the family. But here's the truth. Kody doesn't truly believe in spiritual harmony or family unity. He believes in control, and he manipulates every situation to suit his own needs. His treatment of Janelle, Mary, and Christine reveals just how one-sided things have become. While he demands loyalty and understanding from them, he offers little in return. Unless you're Robin, it's a system of favoritism, a dynamic where Robin receives all the attention and emotional investment, while the others are left to fight for scraps. Kody creates emotional competition, loyalty tests, and confusion, all to maintain his power at the center of the family. And it's not just personal, it's cultural. The dysfunction we see didn't appear out of nowhere. It was built over years, rooted in a belief system that values submission, silence, and self-sacrifice. These women were raised in environments that taught them to put family unity above personal well-being, to stay quiet even when they were hurting. This conditioning has carried into adulthood. It's why they struggle to assert their needs. It's why they feel guilt for speaking out. It's why so many of them are stuck in unhealthy emotional loops, dependent on validation that never truly comes. The scars they carry aren't just from Kody's choices. They're also from a lifetime of being taught that their worth is tied to how well they can endure. Breaking free from that kind of emotional suppression isn't easy. It takes courage to unlearn what you've been taught your whole life, and it takes even more strength to walk away from a system you were told would bring you salvation. In the end, the emotional neglect in Kody's family has had devastating consequences. From Garrison's silent suffering to Isabel's overlooked health, from Mary's emotional dependency to the wives' collective trauma, this isn't just about one man's poor leadership. It's about a broken family system that failed to prioritize love, empathy, and connection. Kody's unwillingness to meet his family's emotional and physical needs has left lasting wounds. And it's a stark reminder of what happens when mental health is ignored and emotional support is replaced with control. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Kody's role in this family dynamic? Do you believe things could have turned out differently if he had chosen connection over control? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. If you found this breakdown insightful, please like this video, subscribe to my channel Sister Wives Daily, and stay tuned for more deep dives into the Sister Wives universe. Thank you so much for watching.